Oh, baby, it is time. A rematch between the Union and M80 to see who will be moving into the grand final to face off against the Guard for the lone spot in VCT next year. Everyone has been fighting for this very moment, that opportunity to make it into the franchise league. Some people believe that these teams should have been there all along, and I guess we'll see which one it is that's going to make it out alive, as there are only 3 remaining. M80 and the Union now walking out on stage, Roy. You know that M80 is feeling warm. I guess that's an advantage of having the early match. But also the Union coming in had to watch that entire game, and they know exactly what to expect from M80 to a certain degree.
Oh yeah, the Union has had like an all-you-can-eat buffet of strategy at this point, right? Like they've gotten a pretty good read on how M80 wants to play and how how they're feeling today, who's popping off, who's feeling hot right now, and it feels like they're probably going to be ready. But look at this hype too. This I love this.
I'm really excited for this one as well. I'm going to make my analysis very simple for these two guys, or these two teams rather, as they walk out on stage. M80 could not shoot back when these two teams played against each other. They looked a little bit shaky. It was their first game. Excuses came out the wazoo on Twitter, and then more and more we saw a better M80, and more we saw an M80 that looked like an M80 from North America. I think in this revenge game, M80 has something to prove, and I think they want to close out this series with a bang and with a strong statement that they're the stronger team today.
I think M80 just needs to not do what they did the first time these two teams played, which is use their utility like bozos. If you watch that first game, you can tell it's just not the M80 we knew. The utility was missing, mollies missing, and post plants, fault lines on your teammates, team flashes, the works. The APR has been a stat for M80 that has been among the highest of all the NA Challenger teams. Everyone works well together. But in that game, it felt like no one was working well together. It was just the opposite of what we anticipate when looking at this M80 roster. And now, Roy, we've seen them hit form. I'm hoping for a better series.
Dude, when you said the missed mollies, that actually brought back like a flashback for me. I was like, wait, this feels like a fever dream. And that's right. This was this event where M80 was whiffing their util on fracture. They had off-time utility. There was like a lot of signs where like, whoa, this is like
we're breaking owl drones.
Yeah, right. Like super uncharacteristic of M80, right? Like a team that we expect to almost have like perfect utility and combo usage. But I mean, let's be real. The M80 that we just saw play this last match against 9Z is a completely different M80 than we saw when they were playing against the Union. I think they're hot. They're heated up right now. But for me, the only big question mark is, is the home crowd advantage a real thing for these guys? Like, are they really going to be affected by the energy in the crowd?
I mean, you'd have to assume. The audience seemed hyped. We got a little bit of a teaser, like a sneak peek.
Hey, right?
Before they went live, when we saw the team just come out to do their setup on stage, there was hype for, the quarter of audience that was currently in the venue as everyone else had stepped away knowing the match was being prepared. They were freaking out. So clearly there will be a home field advantage of some kind, whether it's the entire venue or only a portion of it, it doesn't matter. They're going to be loud for the home team, as there's always a ton of pride in the Brazilian region when it comes to TAC FPS. And let's keep in mind, too, when we look at the teams that have been playing throughout this event, the Union is the only team that has gotten the Guard to bleed. Every other team has lost 2-0. There was maybe a close one at times, but the Guard has been flawless, with the exception of that series against the Union where they lost a map. And a large part of that is due to this player here, Askia, who has been an astronomical pickup for this roster, joining midway through the second split. And Vansili, he has been on point.
Yeah, and we've mentioned it on the desk previous times too, as when we were playing inside the studio, it was a field that was comfortable for all of these players over at the Union, and Askia was definitely one of them. Again, I remember moments where you weren't really dashing when you're activating over, using the opportunity and the advantage of, white noise or the crowds being too loud and whatnot to take that in consideration and actually catch a lot of your opponents off guard. But it has been now multiple rounds, and we're deep in the bracket now where all of this now has been flushed out. I'm sure this discussion also came through. You mentioned it, Roy, that they also have Happy behind the helm here for M80, which then means it comes down to, hey, I've been around this situation before. I've played in front of a crowd before that rooted against me. I've also played against a crowd and a team with white noise and all that too. And I think all those tips really came in to hone out really a strong M80 in this series.
Fans, I think we should hire somebody to be like a spy on the M80 roster so we can get like a sneak peek into what Happy says when they take these timeouts. Like, what do you guys think about that? Is this a valid plan or what?
I agree. I think I'd love to be a fly in the stadium instead of the fly on the wall. I mean, it just looks really hyped to be there right now. Not only to see what the conversation is happening around M80, but also what's happening around the camp of the Union, as well as the crowd being behind all of that. I'm envious for the players playing in the arena now.
Look at this player, though. EU popped off against 9Z. Map 1 was, a pretty good map, 16-7. It was map 2 where he went insane. And honestly, even though it was a great performance from him, because it was such a close game, I feel like it kind of flew under the radar. In the grand scheme, you're looking at a game that maybe we expected M80 to win a little bit easier on Haven. So you're watching 9Z maybe a little bit more intently than you're looking at the players from M80. He ended up going 27-14 with 310 ACS as a Sova. Now that's impressive enough, but his attacking side was 17-4. He had 393 ACS on the attack. Overall in the series, he went 22-4 on the attacking side as an initiator. Impressive stuff from EU.
And it almost felt for me when I was watching this game that we didn't see too much in terms of like EU in the POVs or whatnot, right? It's just a lot of impact frags that he's getting in the mid round too. There wasn't any moments where he had to clutch like a 2 versus 1 or clutch any rounds whatsoever for the team for M80, and yet he puts up these huge numbers in the fragging department and also in the utility to help out the rest of the team. When, again, I've mentioned on that previous series, we didn't have too much of a strong showing from Koala Noob, who's supposed to be the tip of the spear.
Yeah, and I think for me, like kind of moving on to the other side of the fence for the Union side, it feels like the Union is probably like the most NA playstyle team out of the like pretty much all the South American teams and the LATAM teams, right? Like they're the ones who have like an explosive duelist. They have really strong mid rounding. They have really strong openers. Like top down into if you compare playstyles, like they're the ones that play almost similar to how like the NA teams, like how M80 plays, right? They have like a super flashy duelist. They have a really good IGL. They have really good lurkers who can pop off at any point in time. They also have a super involved initiator player in Rafa, who's really involved in the first kills, first death ratios, who's been insane in those ratios, by the way, throughout this tournament. So keep an eye out on him as well.
As you take a look at the map picks and bans there on the screen, Bind being banned is not really a surprise. That is the Perma ban coming in, and Perma is from both teams. Bind and Haven going to be taking off the board. We will see Lotus, which has been a map that M80 has been leaning towards more recently. They put Nismo on the Raze on that map. Koala slots in as the Omen. It's a little bit of a change of pace for the team who has typically run Koala on a Jet. So it is interesting to see them, switch up that composition. They did so towards the tail end of the Challengers season. We'll be going to Fracture in the second map, and should we need a third map? I'm not even going to talk about map 3. Vans, do you think we'll need a map 3?
Oh my God.
I think we should. We should see a third map no matter what, right? I think this would be one of those series because there's only 3 teams remaining, and it's the Union, M80, and the Guard. It's those 3 teams that are favorite to actually get the spot for partnership into the next year. So I feel that you have to fight back and forth in this series. And Fracture, I feel should still go through the Union.
You know what? I'm looking at Fracture the last time when M80 played it. It was rough. Even if their utility was on point, the Union was well drilled on the map, and we've seen that from the Brazilian teams in general. They have a knack for playing this map. Pearl, different story. Close game ends up going into multiple overtimes before Union closed it out. It was 17-15 in their favor. So should we make it to a map 3, there is a world where it could prove to be one of the best maps throughout the entirety of this Ascension event, as it would be a decider for the team that moves on and the team that goes home empty-handed, doomed to repeat another Challenger season. As we take a look at the Agent, it's not really going to surprise us at all too much. I feel like this is what we should expect, Roy.
Yeah, no, this is exactly what we were expecting. Like, there are no changes happening at this point. I think most teams have shown their cards. Like, guys, there's only 3 teams left. Like, if you're hiding strats at this point, it's I don't know what we're doing here, right? So at this point, I think we've pretty much seen everything these teams have to show, unless they have some really crazy sleeves, like tricks up their sleeves, which I don't really expect, to be honest.
I hate crazy sleeves.
Me too, man.
Never rock crazy sleeves on desk either. They're going to get bound up on the mouse pads. We are ready here for our first map in this series. It's a rematch going back to the first match on LAN for both of these teams, where it was the Union who was victorious 2-0 over M80. Can M80 strike back and find revenge when they need it most? Let's hand it over to our casters to find out. Dryad, Tanner, take it away.
Dryad from first match to finals, to lower finals, M80 and the Union have gone just about full circle, but only one gets to move on to play tomorrow. This is going to be an electric matchup here.
One step closer for M80 to make it all the way to the grand finals, but that next step is going to be the needed one and the most important one against the Union, this rematch. And I feel like it's so interesting too, thinking about how this match between M80 and the Union, we saw the first day playing in that studio, and now we get to see the first day on stage in front of the audience. It's just the perfect story between the two to talk about M80, how much comfortable they've gotten, because they look pretty good against Nova Zeta, but against the Union, it's a different story, it's a different team, and it's a new map too that we get to see from them.
Yeah, a brand new map coming out for the map pool of the Union. They've only been forced to play 3 thus far, but the 2 that follow after this one are their comfortabilities in Fracture and Pearl, as Rafa's actually able to get the first kill, taking Nismo down. Getting rid of the Raze here on Lotus is everything for the Union.
Poison orb emitting.
The 2 of the players, the explosive ones that we always talk about, and is the Raze players as well. Something that we've seen more and more recently, the teams finding success into this Raze, but Nismo is actually the one who goes down first, and that space given to M80.
And everybody from the Union just around the corner. Smoke goes down, bodies just might start to fall, the shots go wide, and it's the Union out on top momentarily as EU steals one back. Who not quite in the fight, he'll slowly start to work his way in to try and supplement Pank here. Another smoke to follow. Koala now under fire spout, getting run down. Goo to find the next and make it 2. He finally finds his way into the fight, and he's the guy to get it done. This pistol belongs to the Union.
The patience as well goes for that smoke, make sure that he's able to isolate those duels one by one, even with the support of Pank. Not gonna be needed for that one. As a Union, they get that first pistol, and I love actually watching these Brazilian guys. I think they're so fun to watch because of the many ideas that we've seen throughout Ascension, right? And he goes in different layers. He goes from maybe a little bit of creative Cypher util that we've seen him multiple times in Fracture, all the way to how the coordination is gonna work out. So it's a perfect matchup to see who's gonna move up to the grand finals tomorrow.
Man, I don't know if that's nerves or what, but I know that that's something minor to look at, but pistol shots not landing for Xander in the previous round. Now coming into this one, throwing that poison orb just a little too early. They force into this round as well.
Yeah.
It's not to be unsuspected by M80, especially after get that spike planted, but surely they do not make the same mistakes they met in the first time these two teams went toe-to-toe.
And with the force, things turning around a little bit. Joan Cutie taking some damage, 17 HP left, and pretty aggressive position in the meantime. The Union holding, trying to get clear things to the Prowlers of that fade, and a little bit of fake confidence could be waiting on the other side, but no way, Nismo gets it too.
And this is why you got to deal with that guy, right? He was not allowed to play in the pistol round, forced up, fast forward into the next. And he takes down 2. There's a really good snakebite lineup from Xander that forced NTK off of his angle. And because of that, fought a little too far forward. Nismo will eventually be dealt with, but numbers advantage, time advantage also still in favor. Rafa's just got no way out.
What can he do?
Okay, yeah, eventually Xander will run him down. Koala dealt with. Here comes the retake, though. Pank and Goo, hand in hand. They had to do it in the last round. Now they get to try it again here in this one. As Goo will fall, Pank's just gonna stick this one. Hopper on the corner. The classic gets it done. The force works perfectly for M80.
With the patience as well, they knew there was some sort of aggression playing out towards that A side early on, towards 3 as well, and they wait it out.
Last player standing.
Go for it again, and Nismo is able to open up those fight with 2 kills that we saw early on. Also denied that by the util, the Fade, and the Viper. From that drop position, taking down Rafa. Making things even early on, a little bit of what we can expect for this match. We haven't had a lot of 3-map series throughout Ascension, but it does feel like this could be the one.
This has to be the one. Surely they give us 3 maps. These two teams already compared them between North America and Brazil. Very similar, just as explosive. They usually have one name that takes the cake. Beautiful flash out from MTK. Classic can't quite do it. Koala will find the first, and the paint shells keep the rest of the defense at bay.
It's something that we've seen a couple times if you've been watching Challengers, if you've been following this M80 squad, is this is where Noob ends up playing the Omen, a beautiful paranoia. Ends up connecting to deny the damage that was about to take place. And a Noob that also plays his Omen pretty well.
Yeah, he is, I feel like weight kind of lifted off his shoulder to toss out some smokes. And then just look to frag out. This duelist role picked up by Nismo. Pank, however, doing it again here on this A site. Nice snake bite from Xander will eventually capitalize on that kill. I mean, the shots didn't land in the pistol, but Xander slowly started to put it back together. His util has been impeccable. Now Askia, a tall ask for the young gun here. Will find the first, but can only hope to hurt the economy for maybe a bit more. They all think he's still come from heaven. Finally, Nismo will check the next angle, and there's no way out here for the Rays. Swaps weapons, 4 rounds left, and EU will take him down. 3 HP is plenty. So M80, they lose the pistol, but they swing back an early lead here on Lotus.
On this third round, you securing that Nitro is going to be available for the rounds to come very early on. For this Fade, for this Initiator player that we talked about throughout that first series, how good he is constantly. And it doesn't matter how that combination for that Initiator and what the other player is going to look like for that support. Doesn't matter if it's Nismo, it doesn't matter. It's going to be Noob, depending on who's playing with that duelist role. But it's an EU that is always good until the very end of the round.
I mean, round for round, we just go right back to it. Flashes are there, Nismo finds 2. I mean, the fighting doesn't stop. These guys are playing the same game on opposite sides of the map. They meet C long, they meet up towards B, and it's M80 again out on top. 2 kills the lead.
Is the aggression from B coming for the Union? The 2 players getting taken down. The first one very up close. The second one getting that extra support thanks to that Nightfall. So a 3v5. With the defense spread across usually a couple teams that we see, a couple other teams that we saw throughout Ascension, they're going to be grouping up, but not this case. The information is going to be everything. You have a chance on this retake with Riot as well.
A Goose here, and now he is not. Out goes the rocket. Nismo fishes for a 4th, but is going to be left with only 3. Spike planted. And with that, yeah, the Union just going to be forced to save here on this one. We'll see if M80 go on the hunt or if they allow these weapons to move on over. This was an important round for the Union to win just based off of their economy, and unfortunately, they do not.
On this first half, it would be a statement from M80 to take that lead and keep the lead until the end of the half. This is something that nobody basically has been able to do against a Union, and they don't play this map as much as we've seen. Of course, that Fracture and that Pearl that we've seen constantly throughout Ascension, but I noticed that every time they had to play it in Brazil, they were going in the defensive side first, and they were often taking that lead, that 8-4, that 7-5. There's many different variations that allowed them to get that space going for them. And that is all information that M80 are able to take for themselves to their own favor, to their own advantage.
And an early timeout here going into round 5. Now a 2-round lead for M80, 3-1 the scoreline. And yesterday, not yesterday, because we didn't have games yesterday. We had a couple of days off. Wednesday, maybe? The last time we saw M80 play, especially on Lotus, I forgot who it was on the desk, but somebody had mentioned, if you're picking sides on Lotus against M80, why are you not picking the attack? Right? Why are you not starting on your strong side? Why are you allowing M80 to start on their strong side? Because even if their defense stinks, if they put together 10 or 11 on attack, they just have to get lucky a couple of times, right? That's all they have to do. So it is a little perplexing that the Union opt into starting on defense here. We know how strong their attack is going to be, but the M80 has played this Union before. The Union has not played this M80 before.
This is, I feel like, goes into the conversation that I've seen on Twitter recently about how much of the plays that you bring as a team are your own plays and how much is it counter-stratting, and how much is it what you think is going to be the advantage against whoever you're facing, right? Because, yeah, it can be the argument of you want to play the best side, or I guess a weaker side for the enemy team, but also if you look at the Union on the defensive side, 8 out of 9 times that they played it, they've gone in defense and they've won most of these matches, right? Only losing 2 of them.
Toxins going up.
Having a pretty good score on the defense on that first half, so it's kind of no reason to change it until maybe you're playing against against M80 and you get to see a different story of how this plays out.
It makes sense for the Union. Stick to your guns, do what you know best, and if it is a stronger defensive side, we'll see if they can muster up something. Unfortunately, here in this retake, it gets a whole lot harder. Viper's pit is down. Xander gonna stay, okay, no, not disconnected from the play. Instead, he's gonna hold a close angle. And this pit could fall almost immediately. Shorty up close and personal. Pit will eventually go down, but the bodies start to fall on the opposite side. 2 for 3 we go. There's a few more shots from NTK. Narrowly missed their mark. Koala Shrouded steps into the high grounds, but this has been red. Goo ready on this angle. A rifle picked up. Nismo better on the shots. And now with 5 shots left, 5 HP. Go RVN. Can only hope for some damage here. The spike should blow. M80 should find another round.
Maybe a rifle, but getting out of this positioning is not going to be easy at all, especially if 5 HP gets spotted. He ends up getting taken down by Nismo. 4 rounds now for M80 as the spike goes off in a hit that most of the times now we've seen towards that ace site. And something that I want to talk about, something that we saw into the first rounds, it was a Union trying to play a little bit more aggressive. We've seen how that aggression towards that A side usually plays out with pain shells for the paranoia as well. Sometimes, though not as much recently, that TP for the Omen players. But a Union actually wanting to be respectful of that space early on. I want to see if it's going to change. It does seem like that's a play that they want to go for.
And quick out towards A, dealing with some of that utility, but expending some of their own. Paint shells used. Flash behind it. Hank left on an island, and all 5 for M80 are about to siege the island.
Utility early on, making sure that nobody can take that space towards A. He's actually going to be Askia holding it for a little bit longer, but that's a player that you want to be at the right place, right time when the fight starts to take place. So in M80, adapting a little bit more. They play around towards that C side. Put a couple players all the way back now on A, but that's not where the spike is going right now.
Now the same snake bite to force the rubble angle. Nobody there. Seekers reveal it. There's still some players. I mean, what do the Seekers really reveal? M80 are playing all around the map, so 40 seconds left.
Placing swarm
A Trailblazer and a Flash still available with an NTK, but he's going to have to be perfect. This bit of utility. Now M80 set their eyes on this B side. First one down. Nismo somehow allowed to find that kill. Xander grabs another. This defense whittled down to 3. Oscar gonna try and beat the timing as he beats the paint shells, both 44 HP. He's gotta be perfect. Ooh, and he is.
Now it seems like the smoke going off was a difference there for the Union, but a 2v1 for Pang to deal with.
Yeah, Rafa finds 2 huge kills. Paranoia comes through. Pang gonna try and sneak away, but shots in the back from John Cutie will bury him. And M80 have put a 5th on the board.
The presence of the 3 players that we saw early on the A side, or maybe a little bit more into the middle of the round, they forced those Seekers, and they were playing so far back that it ends up allowing the push from B spike to be planted. And all that space, and look at that, 4 ultimates on the side of the Union, though the buy isn't the greatest to invest all of these.
Cover going out.
Poison orb emitting.
And it has been just the teeter-totter economy for the Union. Buy, save, buy, save. This being one of those save rounds. With 4 ults, you have to think there is some way back into this one. As M80, I mean, they spread themselves thin again across the map they play.
And the setup changes here, right? When you have the Killjoy alone towards this A site. But again, it's an eco. There's not so much besides the sheriffs that you get to see in the hands of the defense.
Ooh, here comes the rocket. Askia's fuse is just so short. Pulls it out, sends the shots. It doesn't land, but for a bit of damage. And because of that, with no real way out, Nismo chases him down, finds the first frag. The B site, not free. The A site, not free. Rafa's still here. Expects some util outwin over the top. Has the lockdown available. Smokes. Keep the attack at bay for now. Inside the nano swarms. I mean, just so much. Overwhelming. They're trying to rotate around. Rafa good for 2, though. Great damage
30 seconds left.
from the Killjoy. The shots could not connect from Goo, and Pank will quickly fall behind him. A team ace and a 6th in a row.
And M80, though, for the past couple rounds, they've been taking their time, right? Getting that info. Playing for that mid-round a lot more. And Rafa does it pretty well, right? He gets that info. He was jump peeking early on. He has, and he gets forced to back up on that side. Gets 2, but the pressure is just too much to deal with. They're going for it. They're going. You know, I was wondering, are we gonna be hearing some talking here? Talking to the audience specifically. In Brazil, of course, supporting the union. But the numbers, the rounds going the other way, the way of M80.
Here.
6 so far on the attacking side, and you know, for
Here.
M80, this is something that they're used to. For most of the teams, the attacking side the strongest on this map of Lotus, but the way that they've been shutting down the economy for the defense has just been what really makes a difference. But the ultimates that we talked about, right? 3 still available for the union, including that lockdown. That is a great tool to utilize here.
And Nismo kind of trying to create some paranoia towards this B site. The rest of the team will start working this way. Nano swarms are still here. There is delay power from Rafa. Nismo gets put in a bad spot. Oh, this util on the site, and there's that lockdown that you talked about. It should force M80 off. It's gonna force their hand. Do they plant? Do they look to run away? And it's go elsewhere as Nismo finds one. NTK here to receive. The attack trying to rotate over towards this A site. And the lockdown has since subsided. The spike has fallen. John Cutie going left, right, front, and center, finding frags, but needs to do it again. A player down or M80 as they work their way back into this round. They've opened up the A site, and quickly Askia and Rafa will rotate towards the A to try and match.
And the time here is so low, but it's just enough to get the spike planted. Lockdown now available on the other side, as it has been for John Cutie. EU finds a pick.
And you have to respect Askia here. Not using the lockdown could be the end of this round. This guy finds frags, unfortunately just could not find the members of M80. And inside the chaos once more, it's M80 out on top.
Into the pressure situations, especially as we get to see here for NTK. Given those duels 1 by 1, he handles it. Goes for that drone as well, ends up backing up and taken down at the end for the 2v2. A lot of those that we've seen today, and at this point, with the tactical pause from the union, I think we can touch into one of the major talking points that has been for the union throughout Ascension, throughout Challengers in Brazil, is this duelist player, right? And how much you are relying on the opportunities that the race is giving to you early on, and what happens when those are not as easy to get. What happens when Askia is not, you know, going absolutely insane, 30 kills into one of the maps and being the difference maker, when he's having a little bit of a slower performance, when he's not getting the opening kill every single time. Has not been something that the union has had to worry about too much, but it could be for this map and for this match.
And the crowd getting crafty with the thunder sticks. We've heard them obviously cheering for the union, but now they've got the signs built, and they do it with what they have. As we take a quick peek at the ritual going on here in Lotus, it feels like it's going to take some kind of ritual summoning for the union to find a round, because outside the pistol, it has been absolutely nothing that they've been able to scoop up, and the teeter-totter continues. They were just on the high side of the teeter-totter economy. Now, again, on the low side, and NTK has been dealt with early.
With another eco, like you said, going back and forth between them, and an M80 that has been so good at forcing this kind of scenario. But a lot of these rounds where we've seen the aggression coming through for the defense, an expected one for Xander.
Put down. My ultimate is ready.
Xander wants some more, give him some more. 3 kills, looking for a fourth. He'll swap to the classic. The secondary gets it done. And I mean, Hank, this has been his home. Seaside has been where it's at. Unfortunately, can't get anything done. As any flawless will find an 8 for M80. And if there was ever a time for the Union, it is right now. 8-4 would be a respectable defensive half against this M80 squad. And they have a full buy to kind of get things rolling forward.
The pixel early on, and then just the patience for Xander. Xander, I think, one of the players that doesn't go mentioned as much because of the role that he holds in the team, but an absolute difference maker, as we've saw throughout Ascension. Even when the team was struggling, when they got that loss against the Union the first time, Xander was always putting numbers. And on this Viper in a map like this one, absolutely conditioned to do so. 4 ultimates available here. Only Seekers as a big tool for NTK and for the Union to work with. Now, a stack. 3 players on A.
Oh, and they seem to know that Xander is here. They'll toss so much util out that way. Deal with them. Now Nismo gonna look to get something opened up on the opposite side. Pank will relieve himself off this site. And 3 defenders are here. This quickly becomes the strong side, but -1 as Rafa falls. Pank gonna try his hand as the lockdown comes on the opposite side, and the Union are gonna be forced to respect this one.
Spike planted.
Oh, no way. The lockdown forces the 3 players just to wait a little bit more, having to back up at the end of the day. A difficult round as well. A lot of pressure put into the A side once again, and Xander was the only one there. It was a 4-1. The spike planted on C. And the space granted once again. Even when Rafa was inside of that smoke, quietly waiting for his chance, and the showstopper got him. Using a good amount of tools too for M80, but it's what's keeping them with this massive lead against the Union.
When they are on the hunt, the Union quickly opt into a save, trying to hang on to 3 of these weapons.
Whoa.
See if any get taken away. No, it's just shots heard. NTK actually scoops up a couple for himself, so a bit of momentum going back the way of the Union as they concede a 9th round. But for M80, I mean, those rifles are, it's child's play. Their economy is going to be good for really the rest of the half. They don't have anything to worry about.
Makes you wonder what the Union is going to bring. As we get to see the attacking side, the only round that the Union has gotten, it was the pistol round. After that, 9 rounds in a row for M80 after the force. Just looking absolutely unstoppable. And we saw this in North America. We saw this in Challengers.
This time it's NTK all on his lonesome here on the A site. M80 looking to stake their claim as they lean out this way, but because of that, look at the space taken by Pank. He's done just hanging out on the C side. He wants to get into the action, and he does so, finding the first frag on EU.
There's an idea of this push, right? But it was usually the other balance that we got to see, that push from C, and one of the players going from the A side actually on the defensive side. This time around, it changes around, and it allows Pank to get one back up and give the numbers for the Union.
And still keeping pressure, right? Making sure that they can't, they don't have this C site as an option. M80 down a player, maybe looking to pressure B as they shoot their way up the gut. Nismo, paint shells in hand, will force one back. Askia be forced to respect that one. Inside the smoke, the duel goes on. Goo will fall. Now the odds are even, but only for a moment. Beautiful paint shells to deal with Nismo, but a Viper's Pit to work through for the defense. And the players are on the inside. Koala gets spammed. Pank will collect one. Here on the retake, Xander and John Kitty gonna try and hang on. They find 2 kills for themselves. The decay starting to come through. The pit still stands, and Xander will be forced forward. But Askia goes fishing in the dark and comes up huge.
No way Askia is able to do that right at the end inside of Viper's pit. One shot, and that was it. But Askia managing to stay alive. The player that we've been waiting to wake up just a little bit, as we saw throughout Ascension every single match. This guy has been insane and always the talking point for this Union squad. But of course, a new territory as you're playing this Lotus.
One enemy remaining.
And a second round in the meantime for the Union.
I mean, literally 2 HP. When you're fighting inside that pit, you saw it. 1 armor, 1 health. Askia comes up huge. The crowd absolutely loving that. And bodies have already dropped.
I'm not sure what happened. Just watching the audience and everybody already down. Askia and NTK no longer available for the side of the Union. A repositioning seems like for the Union a little bit heavier towards A. Once again, Pank does it.
This time, Pank's gonna go for more, though. Last time he found that kill, he backed away towards the C site. Are they expecting this? This turret does nothing for M80 with John Cutie off the board. Another B site push with the spike planted. Paint Shells put Rafa in a tough spot. Forced to give it up. Now they know that there's a judge. They can play the long-range battles.
Call on this Omen with the operator. You get to see that, and you get to see the last kill as well going his way. Waiting for his chance to bring it up once again. It is a double digits for M80.
Yeah.
And that was just the first half.
Yeah, double-digit first half. I was wondering if they knew about Pank, and then Pank's won a quarter, and all 3 were looking that way. Right? There's just really nothing that they could do in that situation. Obviously, a rough start to the round. It seemed like, I don't know, Xander got 2 and then maybe died to paint shells, because we obviously hopped out there. We just see 2 X's on one side, 1 X on the other. But a rough way to start after you just picked up a huge round in way of the Askia clutch. And now they get to go to the strong side on this map. We get to see the Union attack this M80 defense, where M80, they only have to be perfect a few times, or they only have to get lucky a few times, I guess.
That's something that you mentioned too, right? There's only so many rounds left. Only so many rounds here to get, and the pistol will make the work of M80 a lot easier. Trying to close out this map as soon as possible. And a Union on the other side trying to look for a comeback in a map that they're not the most comfortable with, as we've seen and as we've looked at how the map pool has looked for them throughout Ascension.
Oh, that's a great lurk. With Rafa split this far across the map, I wonder if M80 maybe look to explore out towards B. Instead, they're just rotating safely through their spawns. Xander out of util. That snake bite gets used.
Toxin screen down.
And Rafa's calling the troops.
Quite a lot of movement. The door being opened. And the 2 players that raised the killjoy, expecting maybe the push to come through on this side, but the read for the Union is actually ending up on A. All thanks to the pick that we saw for Rafa early on.
Koala comes into this one with the paranoia. Flashes his way through the tree, the running gun, and he just falls short. Right clicks don't land. Rafa gets the better end of the trade, and 5 are still alive for the Union here in the pistol.
The spike planted and that retake. 3 players, Joan Cutie, Xander, and Nismo. A tall task, but 3 players that have been insane on this map so far.
Flash in hand, NTK gets caught out. Askia now gonna try and hang on. The Frenzy can't get it done, it's a classic instead. Nismo in the back lines. Xander works his way forward. Good snake bite on the spike. The snake bite on the pistol is just so strong. Pank collects 1, forced to reload. Now 2 remain as John Cutie, a couple of right clicks later, and they'll fall short. The Union start their comeback now in the pistol.
Things got scary with a 3v3, but it's all good. All according to plan for the Union as they get the last one's position towards tree, and they get that pistol. Again, though, not so many rounds that they got.
Sky's out.
for the Union on that first half, and they got 2 rounds. One of them was the pistol, then they lost
One enemy
from that
remaining.
force. Are we gonna see a force for M80 once again, and how successful can it be?
crowd eats it up.
Play.
The crowd eats it up. And to answer your question, no force, but there is a bit of utility. A reinvestment to Paranoia. John Cutie has util as well. It doesn't look like this will be the round that John puts it down, so maybe just saving it into the next. But, you know, should things start to go their way, it would be available.
Usually for these kind of battles too. Still get to see a couple kills coming through for M80. But of course not going for the buy. On this defensive side does get harder, but it doesn't matter. The classic's enough.
Yeah, the Bulldog, though, getting it right back. Hank gonna make sure this weapon does not go into enemy hands. John Cutie's classic shots not as effective as long range with the Spectre. Koala steals away another, and if they've done anything, they've made this one hurt. Koala just keeps going. 3 HP in a dream. Spike is planted, and he's gonna make sure that if he loses this round, the Union will not get these weapons. And he maybe even opt into a save here. Just hang on to this Vandal.
I mean, you get the Vandal, you're good. You're good for the next round. The damage was more than you could ask for the classics. For the one ghost, I believe that we got to see for M80. Yeah, I mean, a rifle being kept, a Vandal more than anything. Gonna feel great for M80 moving forward. The Union is not that type of team as we saw for M80 in the first series, where they go for that full buy. They don't even go for the bonus. The Union will actually play around the economy. The more standard method that we're used to seeing, and so
Careful.
around that should favor M80 for this one. 3 players in A early on.
Yeah, 1-3-1 though for the Union. They dog their way through. Paranoia follows. John Cutie gonna use some of that utility to try and delay. Meanwhile, into the back lines, the Union go, but 2 players have been dealt with. This bonus round is looking much like a bonus round. This Koala shrouded steps right into more danger. And it's starting to get spun around. It's starting to get flipped on its head. There's upgrades for the Union Dryad.
And you get to hear the audience as well in the background celebrating each one of the kills that the Union is getting. A 3v3 once again. And a couple of rifles that have been picked up too by the Union.
Heku catches you off guard. Good on Xander to trade that one back. Shots through the wall. Pank's playing a different game. He's playing the lineup game. Xander's been dealt with. Now Nismo gonna try his hand, but as the snake fights come out, they land good on the spike. Angle not quite being watched, but NTK, the spider sense was tingling, and he'll find 3 on the round. A huge win there as the Union have now put 3 in a row.
With or without that snake bite, an NTK that was ready to hold it down. If no chance for M80. Into a round like this one, and those rifles going for the last 2 players. The absolute difference maker for this round. And allowing to secure something that we talked about, right? The buy that was not the riskiest one. Again, each one of these rounds being celebrated by the audience.
Satchel out.
And M80, they lose their full buy round, and they come into another one. 3 players already pushed up here. A Judge on the corner, and this is just not something that you want to peek. Flashes out, sees will keep the attack a bit chipped away at. I mean, that Judge alone, with that util behind it, is enough to basically make this a 2-site map for the Union.
I've got your trail.
Nismo given that space for Zay, and like you said, having to take care of the other 2 sides. No way.
A huge oversight there. Vulnerable walking right into the Nano Swarm. Goo works his way onto the site, finds Phil, but John Cutie immediately gets him back. The util and the rifle of John are good for 3, and with that Goo across the map, he'll be allowed to plant the spike, but now a 1v4 to try and hang on. Shrouded step used into heaven. and a smoke. This is it for him.
There's only so many places that you can hide here. Position 4 at 1v4, not easy at all for the Omen.
He's trying to keep him guessing, trying to mix it up. Takes the high ground, gives it up around the corner. Goo, good for 3. Tries for the 4th, but EU stops the reign of terror. And M80 will finally find a defensive round win.
Would have taken a miracle, basically. And I almost saw it happen, but too much to deal with. The last 2 players alive, and an M80 able to pick up that round, that first round of the second half. Getting to 11. And slowly having an understanding, as we've seen throughout the series, throughout the one before, and throughout Ascension overall. An M80 that might have a slower start at the beginning of those halves, and then it is just an unstoppable force right until the end. With tools as well is gonna be making it easier. Lockdown. A Viper Spit 2 on the defensive side. Should be available very soon.
Okay, there's another judge, and that judge is now known as Snore Grenade. A Nano Swarm tossed out from Rafa. John deals with it. Ooh, and Koala gives himself up, thinking that that smoke is going to be enough, but Goo there to punish.
Forcing that reposition from the defense as nobody else was on that T site. That means John Cutie has a mission going all the way around. Making it to C. But nobody to be found here just yet.
Xander hangs on to the A side as well. Hank goes down. And you see the cogs turning. You see inside the mind of Union. Threatened out towards C. Back towards B, now back towards the C side. Xander. Ultimate online, gonna place that one down again. Cutting off the options as the judge continues to tee off here. The weapon of choice for M80. And in fine value, now the Vandals will start to make themselves known. And Rafa put in a tough spot. Wants to try and deal with the pit. He'll take the duel with Xander, but then get a little too dicey. And it's Rafa who gets chopped up.
Xander, who is 1 away from having the Viper Spit, becomes available and allows the ultimate to get invested for the kills to come through, as well as the judge was having some impact early on, but it was a mental game between the two. The aggression in A that gets punished, the aggression in C as well that gets punished, forces the B hit, and an M80 ready for it, shutting it down. 12 already for this defensive side.
Another great start, man. Koala has been early first deaths out towards C a couple of times now. The Union have to try and find ways to make good on this numbers advantage.
Yeah. They know where Koala is every time, right? Where this Omen is going to be positioned towards C. And because of that, he's been getting punished, not having the greatest time as well. Sometimes, yeah, being caught off guard, but still trying to back up. Doesn't get anybody. It's all fine.
Welcome to my
Lockdown for lockdown. Oh, and Peng puts the pit. I mean, how far away from this one can he go? He's going to get detained. This pit, he might not be able to get back into it. We'll give up the site for now. Spike is planted.
There's a Nightfall.
You don't have to hang on. Nightfall available, like you mentioned. We'll see if EU chooses to send this one out. Sees is down at the feet of Penk. He keeps the pit alive, though. Finds the kill for it. Nightfall now dealt with the Xander. Works his way back for one. John another. And numbers here as M80 look to close this one out. Sits down to the last. 2 RVN. Has a bit of util to play with. John Cutie, low HP, will take the fight and win it. And here in the first map, M80, they've righted their wrongs from the first time these two teams met, and Lotus goes their way in dominant fashion.
The energy high for M80. Looking pretty good, feeling pretty good. And I can't tell if they're yelling at the audience or they are yelling at the Union, or, you know, a little bit of banter between the two. That has been the story for Ascension, right? A lot of back and forth between teams, no matter who they're facing, no matter what region you're part of. But it's an M80 that takes the lead. And I feel like we knew kind of how this map number 1 was going to go. A Lotus that we haven't seen. A map pool that is yet to be proven for the Union. But now in that second map, they are going to jump into a more familiar territory.
Yeah, although this looked very good for M80, like you mentioned, the rest of the series looks good. It's been the two maps that have been heavily favored, and the only two that we saw played for a long time by this Union team, that being Fracture and Pearl, which we've already kind of seen this change in comp that didn't work for M80, so I think there's still questions about that. I do think one question has been answered for the side of the Union, right, is what M80 are we going to see today? And with a warm-up match, M80 comes into this one very hot. We kind of talked about it to start our segment here and jumping into the game, that the Union have played M80 before, sure, but they have not played this M80. The inverse, M80 have played this Union. Maybe not this Union, because it felt like this is not the Union that we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing them go absolutely crazy, and they were nullified on this one. But like you mentioned, Triad, the next two maps look pretty darn good for our Brazilian representatives. As we jump into the highlights, we're going to send things back over to the desk to break this one down.
NA fans rejoice as M80 comes out swinging, and they deliver an impressive victory in this first map of Lotus between these two teams. Kind of what I think a lot of people would have expected. M80's rolling in hot off of a strong win in the previous map against their opponents. The last match definitely went their direction, and now they're riding that momentum wave here, and the Union just could not get in this game.
It's a mental warfare kind of thing, and I think Roy was like, oh, you know, maybe M80's playing like 2 BO3s, so you're not going to be as good. Mental fortitude, Union's frothing at the mouth. Hell no! M80 definitely came out to play, and they actually fought hard. There was like no answer coming out here for Union. I'm surprised actually at this point as well that, you know, Union wanted to float this over against M80 because they've always looked very, very strong on this map for M80 themselves. But definitely, I think it reverses things over, right? Because the Union started off on defense, and it was their opportunity to choose the side, and they still chose the harder side to think that maybe we could actually bring up a couple of rounds and then just solidify our attack side. But when you're losing 10-2 in the first half and nothing, you have no answer to how M80 were really attacking on that first half, what can you really do?
Defensively, number one, I'm just going to turn the other cheek because I deserve that one. Number two, there's three mysteries for me: space, human creativity, and why the heck do teams keep picking defense on Lotus? It so rarely works out. It's an incredibly attack-sided map. There's so much pace control on that map. A lot of the meta stuff, like A control, is so easily read now and countered. You know, like we even saw it from M80. Like every single time the Union had a plan on their defense to be aggressive, to be disruptive, it seems like M80 was completely ready. Koala's paranoia, the counter utility was coming out, constantly shutting down any trap plays that the Union had. It just seemed perfectly well constructed for M80 from beginning to end.
72% attack side win rate for M80 on this map. And it just kind of illustrates the point you're trying to make. Not only does the map skew to the attack side, it skews to M80's attack side, which honestly, it feels like many maps skew to M80 on the attack side. Definitely seems they feel very comfortable on that portion of the map. And you can see that here. That's how they get things started. And you could hear them on stage as well, getting a little verbal as they were wanting to defend their honor after their opening group stage matchup loss to the Union. And what better way to do it than a 13-5 victory here? And you can see everyone playing well. You know, even though Koala Noob finishes 7-10, it's not necessarily in the numbers that he does the work on the Omen roll. It's a lot of setup work coming in from by way of his paranoia. There was a great round at one point where you actually saw them get aggressive on the defensive side on C. His paranoia saved the round. M80 probably would have lost heavy bodies if it weren't for how well timed his utility was, and they ended up walking away with a victory on that one after re-aggressing towards the A side. Here's Xander, though. I mean, incredible form right now, Roy. Xander is obviously hitting his stride.
I feel it honestly just feels like all of them are like it just
true.
If you flip a coin and it somehow has 5 sides now and they're all M80 players, it's weird, right? It's kind of a crazy thing. But yeah,
It's like
I totally
D&D dice.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But no, for real, like it seems like every player right now is here. They're hungry. They're ready to play. They're not messing around, and all of them can pop off at any given time. And this is a really strong statement by M80.
You could still have the same mentality as 9Z just played against M80 before. It's like a GG go next. Yeah, you're playing the map that, you know, you're not as strong against M80 on, but you are going to move over to Fracture after, where Fracture, you had a much better showing than M80 last time when you faced off against each other in the group stages. And on top of that, M80 was a team that brought something kind of like out of the strat book of EG, bringing out the Silva. Didn't work out. They went back to a fade, and then we'll see if that's going to be the same composition again as last time. But if that's the case, then Roy, back to, yes, frothing at the mouth, seeing how they played before. They have some tape when they're good on that map. Could be a 3-mapper still.
I mean, Fracture's the second map, which means I think it's an appropriate time to take a break. Get it? That's a Fracture pun. We're going to throw things to break. When we come back, we'll be jumping into map 2 to see if the Union can clap back and force a 3-mapper here in our lower final. Stay tuned.